Chapter 1: New Body, New Problems. Waking up to the smell of soup was the first sign something was wrong. Not that soup is inherently evil. It's just that I went to bed in my one-bedroom apartment in Chicago, alone, after rage-quitting a game of Overwatch and watching 3 hours of conspiracy videos about parallel universes. So, waking up to the scent of something earthy and meaty simmering in a pot? Yeah. That was new. Also new. The pounding ache in my lower back, the pressure in my stomach, and the distinct lack of anything remotely familiar, including my own body. I groaned and sat up, or tried to. My abs screamed. My everything screamed. I felt bloated, sore, and off balance, like my center of gravity had shifted, which it had. As I discovered the moment I looked down and saw the full swell of a heavily pregnant belly. Nope, 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 I said. My voice was higher, softer, and the hand I used to push back my hair was slender, delicate, and pale. What the hell was this? Then he turned around. The thing. Standing over a simmering pot on a fire pit turned to face me, and I forgot how to breathe. He was tall, like basketball player plus a foot. Shirtless, of course, because why wouldn't he be? His skin was a muted silver gray, his eyes molten gold, and his hair, long jet black, braided down his spine like he was cosplaying as a Final Fantasy character. Wings. He had wings, folded against his back like it was no big deal. And horns. And a tail. I was in hell. "Dean, you're awake," he said, voice low and warm like melted chocolate over gravel. He stepped closer. I scooted back until I hit the wall. "Okay. I don't know who you are or what this is, but I'm gonna need you to put on a shirt and maybe explain what the actual hell is happening." He blinked slowly, like I'd said something in ancient Greek. "You hit your head when you fell last night? You don't remember?" he said simply. "No, and I'm kind of hoping this is a dream, or a really specific coma, or a very niche mental breakdown," I snapped. He knelt beside me, eyes scanning my face with concern. He reached for me. I flinched. Don't touch me." His hand paused in the air, then slowly dropped. "I'm Asher, your mate," he said. I stared at him. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, because I was losing my mind. Because apparently I was pregnant in a cave in a different body married to a dragon. And his name was Asher. Chapter 2: The Prenatal Prison. I tried to leave. Really, I did. Got all the way to the mouth of the cave before the wind slapped me like it had a personal grudge. The outside world was snow and cliff and death. No roads. No cities. Just endless mountain ridges and a sky that looked like it had forgotten how to be blue. "I want a refund," I muttered, turning back. Asher was waiting. Of course he was. Standing with that silent, stoic look like a statue that just happened to breathe and make you feel inadequate. "You're not ready to go out yet," he said. "Gee, you think." I waddled past him. Well, my new body waddled. I wasn't in control of the waddle. The waddle had a mind of its own. He didn't follow. Just watched me set myself back on the pile of furs like a sulking walrus. "Do you need help?" "No. Unless you've got a teleportation crystal that sends me back to Earth." He tilted his head. "Earth? Right. Fantasy world. Forgot. I'm gonna scream into a pillow now. Don't mind me." I rubbed my face. I didn't scream. I just stared at the flickering fire and tried to pretend I wasn't having an existential collapse. I was a man. A very straight, very normal man. And now I was married to a dragon. A dragon named Asher, who apparently thought nothing of shirtless domesticity and feeding me soup like we were in some kind of wilderness honeymoon. And I was pregnant. I didn't care how soft the blankets were. I was not staying here. Chapter 3: The Romance Novel from Hell. Asher left for exactly 1 hour. He didn't say where he was going. Just nodded at me, murmured something about firewood, and vanished into the cold like a tragic anime protagonist. I took exactly 7 seconds to start snooping. If I was in a fantasy novel, and at this point I was at least 89% sure that was true, then there had to be some kind of magic book, spell scroll, or plot-revealing mirror lying around. What I found was tucked in a chest under a stack of fur blankets. It was a leather-bound journal with strange symbols etched into the cover. glowing faintly like a screensaver. When I opened it, English spilled across the page like it had been waiting for me. It read, "The mate of the dragon prince was gentle, demure, and loved with all his heart." Closed it, then reopened it, until tragedy struck, and the dragon feared he'd lost his beloved forever. My hands went cold. My chest prickled. This wasn't just any fantasy world. I was in a BL novel, and I had replaced the original main character. I skimmed faster, reading about a fragile yet pure-hearted male wife named, get this, Diane. Close enough. The original Diane was sweet, shy, a healer. He nursed wild animals and braided flowers into Asher's hair and, ugh, sang. I slammed the book shut. I was not that person. I did not sing. And Asher had no idea the soul he fell in love with was gone. When he returned, arms full of firewood, I couldn't look at him. "You found it," he said softly, like he knew. I nodded once, then muttered, "This is all fake." He set the logs down. "It's not fake to me." I hated how that made my chest hurt, so I did what any rational person would do. I threw the book in the fire. Okay, gently placed it. Still, it was symbolic. Chapter 4, Operation. No touching. We needed ground rules. I announced this over breakfast, which was apparently roasted root vegetables and something that tasted suspiciously like bacon, but probably wasn't. Asher sat across from me, quietly chewing. Always so quiet. It was weirdly unnerving how someone that big could move like a shadow. Even weirder was the way he watched me. Not creepy, not possessive, just observant. Like he was waiting for me to break into song or morph into a dove or whatever romantic fantasy he was clinging to. "Rule number 1, I said, stabbing a root with more aggression than necessary. "No touching. No cuddling. No weird sniffing while I'm sleeping." His brow twitched. "I don't sniff you. You hover. It's almost worse," I said. He nodded once. "All right. Rule 2. No calling me your mate." He paused. "You are." "No. I'm a very confused human man who got soul-swapped into a sparkly cave omega, and I would very much like to be called by my actual name. Dean." Another nod. "Dean. Great. You're being surprisingly chill about this." I blinked. "I don't want you to feel unsafe." Okay. I wasn't ready for that. "Cool," I said, very uncool. We ate in silence for a while. Then I asked, "So, how did the other Diane, whatever, get knocked up?" Asher blinked. "We bonded. It's a sacred connection. Physical and magical." I coughed on my not bacon. "Bonded, you mean like a magical contract? Or like mating?" I wheezed. His cheeks flushed the barest hint of silver. "Yes." I dropped my head to the table. "Oh my God. I have someone else's dragon baby." The baby kicked in response. I hate the timing in this world. That night I made a pillow fort between us. It was a line of fur blankets, one very firm branch, and 3 shiny rocks that I designated as the official border stones. Asher said nothing, just nodded solemnly like I'd cast a sacred barrier spell. I lay down with my back to him. The cave crackled with firelight. The baby shifted again, this time gently, like it was curious. And Asher said quietly, "You don't have to be Diane. I still choose you." I didn't answer, but I didn't hate hearing it. Chapter 5, Why is this guy kind of sweet? Asher cooked again the next morning. No talking, no questions, just quietly roasting meat and slicing fruits like some weird wilderness husband. I didn't say thanks, but I ate everything. And I watched him. Not like that. Just okay, yes, like that, a little. It was hard not to. He had this effortless strength to him, the kind of presence that made you feel safe even when you didn't want to admit it. And when he crouched by the fire, feeding logs into the pit with those ridiculous hands, I caught myself thinking, this guy could probably build a house with his bare claws, which was a very dumb thought to have, especially while pregnant with his child. "I'm going for a walk," I announced, standing up and immediately regretting it. My back cracked in 3 different places. My hips protested. My belly shifted with the smug weight of a bowling ball. Asher stood instantly. It's icy. I'll be careful. He didn't argue, just followed. I didn't stop him. The outside air bit like a cranky Arctic wolf. But I kept walking, boots crunching in fresh snow, scarf tucked up over my mouth. Asher walked behind me, a silent shadow. After a while, I said, "You always this quiet?" "I speak when needed, right? Because romance novels love the strong, silent types." No answer, but I caught the ghost of a smirk. We walked along a narrow ledge until we reached a spot overlooking the valley below. Mountains layered the horizon like shark teeth. Wind pushed against my coat, but I stayed. "This place is wild, beautiful, terrifying. Kind of like you," I said. Asher tilted his head. "Terrifying? Dude, you're a 7-foot dragon with horns. You made a bear run away just by looking at it yesterday. It was too close to the den. It was 30 feet away." He blinked slowly. "It was too close." I snorted. "All right, big guy. Whatever keeps the bear away." Later, back in the cave, I found a blanket draped over my usual spot, thicker than the rest, clearly placed there. I looked at him. He just shrugged. "I noticed you shiver at night. God damn it, why was that sweet?" "I'm still not cuddling you," I muttered. "I know. But that night, when the fire dimmed and the baby kicked harder than usual, I whispered, 'Thanks.' I don't think he heard me, but he smiled in his sleep anyway." Chapter 6. The nesting instinct is not real, probably. I wasn't nesting. Let me be very clear about that. Just because I dragged a bunch of furs into a more organized pile and moved the fire pit 6 feet to the left and shoved a few rocks around to get a better view of the sunrise didn't mean I was nesting. I was optimizing the cave for safety and comfort and firelight distribution. Also, the smoke vent worked better this way. Science. Asher didn't say a word about it. He just watched me rearrange our not bedroom with a mildly amused expression and offered to help when I started trying to roll a boulder. "No thanks, I've got it." I grunted. "You're out of breath." "I'm not." I paused mid-huff. "Okay, yes, but I can still do it." He walked over and nudged the boulder aside with one toe like it was a decorative pillow. "Show off." Later, I found myself brushing out a fur blanket with a stick. Not for any reason. Not because I wanted it extra soft for sleeping. Just because I had nothing better to do. Definitely not nesting. "You're making a den," Asher said casually. "I'm making aesthetic adjustments." I shot back. He tilted his head. "You're smiling." "I'm grimacing. Very different." "You seem calmer." I didn't answer right away, because he wasn't wrong. Something about staying busy, reshaping the cave to my rhythm, made this surreal dragon husband pregnant situation feel less terrifying, like I had control over something, even if it was just interior design. "I guess I'm adjusting. Still not cuddling you," I admitted. I didn't ask, but the corner of his mouth twitched. That night, I fell asleep without the pillow wall. I told myself it was because I was too tired to rebuild it. Not because I felt safer than I had in days. Definitely not that. Chapter 7. Dragon Dad Sings Lullabies. There are a few things you never expect to hear from a man with horns and wings. Humming is one of them. Low and slow, tuneless but steady. Like someone trying to remember a melody they heard a long time ago. The sound vibrated through the cave walls like it belonged there, part of the stone and ash and quietly bubbling stew. I lay on the bed, well, nest technically. A very large, surprisingly soft arrangement of furs, moss, and one stolen hoodie I'd been using as a pillow, and listened. Asher stood at the fire, back to me, stirring something that smelled suspiciously like meat and mushrooms. Again, the dragon diet I was learning was big on protein, light on seasoning, and a war crime against fiber. But the humming, that was new. It wasn't for me, I knew that. He hadn't even looked over. His focus was on the pot, slow figure eights with a wooden ladle clutched in claws that could easily shred steel. But the sound was gentle. Then the baby kicked. Hard. I gasped and pressed both hands to my belly. "Okay, all right, I get it, you like the weird lullaby." "Jesus," I muttered. The kicking slowed, then stopped. like the little tenant inside me had been soothed. By the dragon's voice. Cool. Totally normal. Definitely nothing to cry about. Except, of course, I cried. Quietly. Stupidly. The kind of tears that sneak out when your brain is tired of pretending everything's fine. I sniffed and wiped my face with the hoodie sleeve, but it was too late. Asher had turned around. His golden eyes met mine, and the humming stopped. "You're crying," he said, as if this was a new and deeply confusing phenomenon. "I'm pregnant." I shot back, then immediately felt stupid. He tilted his head. "That explains the tears?" "No, it explains everything." I sat up, wincing at the familiar pull in my lower back. "It explains why I'm emotional and bloated, and stuck in a body that isn't mine, and why I get weirdly jealous when you bring shiny rocks home like some kind of romantic magpie." He blinked slowly. "You're not jealous of the rocks." I stared at him. "You don't know that." Silence. Then, so quietly I almost missed it. "I'll bring fewer rocks." I didn't know what to do with that, so I laid back down and covered my face with the hoodie. At some point, I must have drifted off. I woke up to warmth at my side, and a soft, heavy weight across my legs. His tail. Not curled. Not binding. Just there. Draped like a weighted blanket. Radiating heat. I should have moved. Should have panicked. But instead, I just stared at the cave ceiling and listened. To his breathing. To the baby's tiny kicks. To the part of me, deep, buried, still resisting, that didn't hate any of this. I turned my head toward him. "Asher," I whispered. He was already watching me. I swallowed. "Why do you live alone?" He was quiet for a long time. Then, "Because I was waiting for you." And somehow, that was the most terrifying thing he'd said yet. Chapter 8: The Trial of the Shimmering Lake. The first sign something was wrong was the cramp. Not the usual pregnancy stuff. This was sharper, deeper, like something inside me had twisted wrong and was now sulking about it. I groaned. "Okay, baby. Not funny." Asher was at my side in seconds, crouching low, golden eyes scanning me like I was about to explode. "What is it? Where does it hurt?" "Low left side. Feels tight, like something's pinched." I hissed. He laid a clawed hand gently on my belly, and for once I didn't flinch. "I know what this is. You need Jessith root," he said. "Great. Awesome. Where is it?" "Shimmering Lake. Half a day's flight." "Cool," I said. "Let's drive." He blinked. "Right, we don't have cars. Forgot I live in a magical forest with no Uber." "Okay. We fly." "You ride, I carry," he corrected. "Sure. Because my dignity hasn't suffered enough." The lake lived up to its name. It shimmered, weirdly bright under the pale sky, surrounded by jagged rocks and low-hanging mist. It would have been beautiful if my thighs weren't cramping from gripping a dragon's back for hours like a terrified koala. Asher landed gracefully, letting me slide off with more care than necessary. I immediately staggered and sat on the nearest rock, clutching my stomach. "Stay here, I'll find the plant," he said. "No way. If this is for me, I help." He didn't argue, just handed me a dagger the size of my forearm and said, "Don't drop it." Terrific. It didn't take long to find the herbs. It did, however, take about 3 seconds for things to go completely sideways. I was crouched near the edge of the lake, trying to pull out a blue-rooted plant that pulsed faintly like it had a heartbeat, when I heard the growl. Lo, not Asher. A beast stepped out of the mist, long-bodied, fur like oil slick, too many eyes. I froze. "Asher," I whispered. He was already moving. What happened next was fast and loud and honestly kind of horrifying. One moment, he was next to me. The next, he was on the creature, roaring like a landslide, claws ripping, fangs flashing. He wasn't graceful. He was feral. It was over in seconds. The thing screeched once, then crumpled into the water. Asher stood over it, chest heaving, silver skin streaked with blood. He turned to me. His eyes glowed, still wild. Then he blinked, and the rage slipped away like it had never been there. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you," he said, voice rough. "I wasn't scared. Just concerned." I lied. His gaze softened. We stared at each other. The lake glittering behind us. Blood in the water. Herbs clenched in my hand like a prize from a nightmare. Then his hand twitched. And mine did too. Not enough to touch. Just a hover. It would have been easy to close the gap. So easy. We didn't. But for a second, we almost did. And somehow, that scared me more than the monster. Chapter 9. Are you even still straight, bro? The cave had a small pool near the back, hidden behind a cluster of stones and low-hanging moss. I'd never paid much attention to it, too busy escaping, surviving, panicking. But that morning, something pulled me there. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the way my body felt oddly. Still, whatever it was, I found myself kneeling beside the water, peering into it, and seeing myself for the first time. Not just seeing, noticing. The face looking back at me wasn't mine. Not the me from Chicago, who wore gamer hoodies and forgot to shave. This face was softer, sharper in some places, rounder in others. Cheekbones high, mouth full, eyes absurdly large. My hair fell in waves past my shoulders, dark and thick and faintly shimmering like something out of an anime fever dream. My skin glowed. It actually glowed subtle, like moonlight over snow. Oh no, I'm hot, I whispered. Pregnant, yes. Bloated, sure. But also beautiful. The kind of delicate, radiant beauty that made it very hard to pretend I was just a guy trapped in a situation. The kind of beauty that made me question what I even was now, and why I'd started noticing every time Asher smiled. I staggered back from the water. Nope, we're not doing this. This is not a thing. I marched back into the main chamber of the cave, determined to overthink this in peace, when Asher looked up from the fire and said, I made something for you. I blinked. What? He held out a small object in one giant hand. I took it automatically. It was a pendant, sort of. A lumpy silver disc on a cord of braided leather. The edges were uneven, the carving in the center crude. Maybe a dragon claw, maybe a lizard having a seizure. Couldn't tell. It was ugly. Like, aggressively. I used my claw to etch it. It's a warding charm. To keep you and the baby safe. He said. I stared at it. Then I burst into tears. Not polite, sitcom tears. Messy tears. The kind where your nose runs and your chest hiccups and you try to talk through it and sound like a drunk goat. Asher looked horrified. I can make a better one, he offered, voice rising an octave. I clutched the pendant to my chest like it was the crown jewels. No, it's perfect. Shut up. He blinked. I sniffled. No one's ever made me anything before. Which wasn't true. My mom once made me a paper crown for my 7th birthday. But that didn't count. That wasn't this. This wasn't just a gift, it was protection. It was care. From a man who didn't speak much but watched everything. And that meant I had to ask a question I'd been avoiding for weeks. If I ever made it home, would I even want to go back? Chapter 10. I think I like my life? I didn't mean to stop planning my escape. It just kind of happened. One day, I woke up and realized the crude escape map I'd scratched into the back wall was half erased. Overwritten with tally marks tracking baby kicks instead. The next, I caught myself organizing the herb jars by color. Then by taste. Then by what mood they triggered, like some kind of feral apothecary with a Pinterest board. I told myself it was for safety, nesting, instinct, not comfort, definitely not contentment. And when I started humming to the baby, I told myself it was just noise. Just a way to fill the cave while Asher was out flying. Not because the rhythm calmed me down, or because the baby kicked in time with the melody. Nope, I wasn't getting attached. And then Asher came home early. I was sitting cross-legged on the bed nest, rubbing circles over my stomach and humming something vaguely stolen from Zelda when he landed in the entry tunnel. I froze mid-note. He didn't say anything, just stood there, wings folding in, golden eyes soft. You're back early, I said, like I hadn't just been singing to a fetus. The winds shifted, storms coming, he said. He didn't look at the stew pot, or the herbs, or the now half-decorated corner of the cave I'd started turning into a nursery without realizing it. He looked at me. I patted the spot next to me. You can sit, if you want. He didn't sit. He knelt. Then, slowly, with all the caution of a wild animal trying not to spook me, he rested his head in my lap. His head in my lap. And I let him. I didn't flinch. Didn't move. Just stared at the silver-black braid that spilled over my legs and the way his shoulders rose and fell like quiet waves. His skin was warm. Not just physically. Felt like something steady. Anchoring. I ran a hand through his hair without thinking. He closed his eyes. And I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of him. Not of here. Not even of myself. Maybe this wasn't my world. Maybe this wasn't my body. Maybe everything about my life had flipped upside down and caught fire. But for the first time since I woke up in this bizarre dragon-filled reality, I didn't want to run. Not because I was trapped. Because, somehow, this started to feel like a place I could stay. Chapter 11, Labor and Raw Emotion. It started with a pop. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just wet. I stood in the middle of the cave, holding a ladle, trying to remember if soup had ever made my back feel like it was being sawed in half, when something warm trickled down my legs. I looked down. "Oh," I said. Then I screamed. Asher was there in seconds, always in seconds. He took one look at me, dripping and wide-eyed, and scooped me up without asking. "Hey, I can walk," I protested. "You're leaking, you're not walking," he said calmly. I was too busy panicking to argue properly. Labor, it turned out, was not a beautiful, glowing, miraculous experience. It was war. Hours blurred together in a haze of pain and swearing. My body betrayed me one contraction at a time, folding in on itself while I screamed things like, "I hate you," and "This baby is trying to kill me," and "If you ever touch me again, I'll burn your stupid tail." Asher took it all. Quietly, patiently. He didn't leave. Not when I clawed at him. Not when I sobbed into his chest. Not even when I screamed his name like it was the only thing tethering me to this plane of existence. "You're doing well," he whispered between contractions, voice hoarse but steady. "You're strong." "I hate you," I gasped. "I know." He held my hand. I crushed his fingers. He didn't flinch. At some point, time didn't exist anymore. The pressure shifted. The pain changed. Became sharp. Immediate. "I can't," I whispered. "You can." "I'm scared." "I'm here." The baby came into the world screaming. Loud and furious and perfect. Asher caught him. Her? No, him. And wrapped him gently in a blanket that hadn't been there 10 seconds ago. Magic, probably. Or dragon dad instincts. I sobbed. Not because I was in pain, not because I was exhausted, but because the baby opened his eyes. And they were silver. Not gray. Not blue. Silver. Like Asher's. Like mine. He placed the baby on my chest. I looked down at this tiny, squirming thing that I'd carried, hated, loved, and feared, and my heart cracked open. I touched his cheek. He blinked. "I did that," I said weakly. "You did," Asher said. And then I passed out in his arms. The last thing I remember before the world went black was whispering, "Don't leave," and hearing very faintly, "I won't." Chapter 12, Family of 3. The baby had a name now. Sort of. Technically, we hadn't settled on anything, but Asher had started calling him Soren, and it felt right. Soft. Strong. A little serious, but kind. Like someone who might one day lead a clan or write poetry in secret. I was still calling him Bean out loud, though. Couldn't help it. He was tiny. Squishy. Always making little snuffling noises like an angry teapot. My teapot. My kid. God. The days blurred. Not in a bad way. In the quiet, exhausting, repetitive rhythm of new life. Diapering with moss. Don't ask. Midnight feedings. Tiny dragon hiccups that smelled faintly like smoke. He sneezed once and singed my hair. I laughed until I cried. Asher changed. Not dramatically, but I started to notice the details I'd missed before. How he always stood between me and the cold wind from the cave mouth. How he'd hold Soren in one arm while stirring soup with the other. How he'd tilt his head and listen, really listen, when the baby fussed as if every sound was a coded message only he could decode. One night, I woke up to the sound of humming. That same soft, tuneless melody I'd heard before. But now it was for the baby. I sat up. Asher was rocking Soren near the fire, massive hands cradling the infant like he was made of light. And I felt it. The shift, the snap, the terrifying, overwhelming click of something falling into place. This wasn't just survival anymore. Wasn't just nesting. Wasn't hormones or habit or magical dragon mating instincts. I loved them. I loved this cave. I loved that ridiculous, patient, terrifying man. I loved our baby, who had my stubborn jaw and Asher's molten eyes and a cry like a war horn. And once I admitted that to myself, I couldn't take it back. I sat there in the dark, heart thudding, watching my mate, rock our son with wings tucked protectively around them, and I whispered, "Oh God," because love, when it's real, doesn't shout. It just arrives, quiet and steady, and it stays. Chapter 13, the portal appears. I wasn't looking for it. I was just organizing the books. Again. Not because I'm suddenly some domestic cavewife, but because they were stacked in a way that offended both gravity and basic logic. So I was sorting them, spines out, titles up, when I found it. The spell. Tucked inside a worn leather journal. Pressed between two yellowing pages like it had been waiting for me. It wasn't flashy. No golden glow. Just a line of runes and an instruction. Speak these aloud, and your door will open. Once. My stomach flipped. I read it twice. Then again. Slowly. Carefully. Portal. Away home. My home. I stared at the page like it might vanish. Then, almost without thinking, I read the words aloud. The portal bloomed into the air in front of me. Tall, narrow, humming softly. It shimmered like water stretched into a sheet, gently rippling with color. Through it I saw outlines, hints of city lights, glass windows, the faint buzz of electricity. Chicago. Home. It was really there. I stepped closer, and then I felt it, heat at my back. I turned. Asher stood in the entryway, wings half unfurled, tail still, expression unreadable. He looked at the portal, then at me, and then he did something worse than yelling. He turned away, said nothing, just walked, back into the cave, back to Soren. No questions, no guilt, just acceptance. And that somehow hit harder than anything else could have. My chest cracked open, sharp and sudden, because I could leave, right now, and he wasn't going to stop me. I stood there for a long time, watching the world I came from dance in front of me. Familiar sounds, familiar lights, but I didn't move, because the only thing I could see clearly was the look on his face. Not anger, not sadness, just heartbreak worn quietly. The kind that doesn't beg. The kind that believes you'll choose what matters to you, and already knows what that probably means. Chapter 14, You Were Never Just a Replacement. I found him sitting near the fire, holding the pendant he made me. Not wearing it. Not even looking at it. Just turning it over in his hand like he was waiting for it to tell him what to do. The baby was asleep, bundled in soft moss and fur, his little fists twitching in a dream. Asher didn't look up when I stepped into the light. "I wasn't going to stop you," he said quietly. I saw. Silence. The fire cracked. The wind outside howled through the cave mouth, cold and distant. I found the spell I could leave. I almost did, I said. Still nothing. I stepped closer. My heart was pounding. "Can I ask you something?" He nodded once. "The old me, the one from this world. You loved him, didn't you?" Finally, he looked up, and I saw it, the ache he'd been hiding. The weight he'd been carrying since the first second I opened my eyes and didn't know his name. "Yes, I did," he said. I swallowed. "And now I'm different. New. I'm not him. You are different, yes, but still you. Changed, but not lost," he said, eyes locked on mine. He stood, stepped closer, slowly. Love doesn't vanish. It doesn't shatter when something shifts. It bends, grows, finds the new shape of you. I stared at him. "You're not just saying that? I would never lie to you." My chest was tight. I didn't know if I wanted to scream, or cry, or laugh. "You make me crazy, you're too tall. You hoard shiny trash. You hum lullabies off-key, I said. He smiled. I'm still scared, I admitted. So am I. He reached out, slow and careful, and rested his palm on my cheek. No claws, just warmth. And I leaned into it, because I wanted to, because somewhere along the way this wasn't survival anymore. It wasn't accidental. It wasn't fate or instinct or a curse I had to wait out. It was us. So I kissed him. It wasn't dramatic. No swooning. No music. Just lips. Pressure. Heat. Real. When we pulled apart, he didn't say anything. Neither did I. We didn't need to. Chapter 15. I could leave, but I won't. The portal shimmered like a mirror made of stars. It hovered a few feet off the ground, pulsing with quiet power, framed by the jagged edges of a stone arch carved with runes I'd somehow been able to read. Maybe it was the body I was in. Maybe it was whatever magic governed this bats-hit world. Either way, I understood what it meant. One-time exit. Use it or lose it. Behind me, the cave was quiet. Too quiet. No footsteps. No sounds of soup or humming or tail swishing. Just me, standing with a squirming baby in my arms and a gateway to my old life flickering in front of me. My heart was beating like a war drum. I looked down. The baby blinked up at me with silver eyes. His eyes. Asher's. The weight of everything hit me at once. Chicago, Overwatch, my apartment with the stained carpet and half-dead houseplants. My friends. My old body. My old name. The life I never got to say goodbye to. It was right there. I could walk through and go back. Start over. Pretend none of this happened. Except it did. I turned around. Asher was standing at the far end of the cave, half in shadow. His wings drawn in tight like he didn't want to take up too much space. Like he didn't want to pressure me. Like if I needed to go, he'd let me. His face was unreadable, but his eyes, God. They looked like they were dying. Quietly, like he'd already started letting me go. I hated it. I hated how gentle he was with me, how fiercely he loved this tiny baby, how he made me tea when my back hurt and slept curled at the mouth of the cave like a guard dog with wings. I hated that I loved him. The baby gurgled and pressed a chubby fist to my chin. I smiled without meaning to. Then I looked back at the portal, and I stepped forward. 1 foot, 2. I could feel the heat of it. The hum under my skin, like it recognized me, like it wanted to take me home. But it didn't feel like home. Home wasn't ramen and reruns anymore. Home was lullabies sung in broken common. It was warm soup. It was a dragon with ridiculous hair braids who didn't flinch when I screamed or cried or panicked. I looked down at the baby. You want to go to Earth? I whispered. He farted. I nodded. Fair. I turned around. The portal pulsed one last time behind me. Then, without ceremony, it flickered and died. Gone. Asher didn't move. I walked back toward him slowly, heart pounding, trying not to shake. When I reached him, he didn't say a word, just looked at me like he didn't believe it. I pressed the baby into his arms. This is my home now, I said. His wings opened, then closed again. His tail curled around us both. He still didn't speak. He didn't have to. Chapter 16. Co-parenting a fire-breathing toddler. There are certain things no one prepares you for when you accidentally mate with a dragon and give birth to his child. Like teething, or molting, or the fact that your toddler might spontaneously combust during nap time. It started innocently enough. Baby was curled up in his little nest of moss and blankets, snoring softly with his thumb in his mouth. Adorable, until he sneezed. Just a little achoo followed by a puff of smoke. I blinked. Okay, that's a new, I said cautiously. Another sneeze. Another puff. This one accompanied by a tiny lick of orange flame that singed the edge of his favorite blanket. I lunged. Shit. No, we're not doing spontaneous combustion today. I yanked the blanket out from under him and stomped the edge out with my heel, patting frantically like some suburban dad who'd just seen his kid juggle matches. Asher. He appeared immediately, wings flaring slightly, eyes scanning the room like we were under siege. Is he hurt? He asked, already halfway to us. No, I said, pointing at the still gurgling baby. But your son just tried to set himself on fire. With his nose. Asher crouched beside the nest, examining the scorch marks with maddening calm. Then he picked up baby. Ah, his breath is awakening, he said, nodding. His what now? The fire, he explained, like we were talking about teething or growing a third molar. It begins as smoke. He'll burn small things for a while. It's natural. Natural, I said, voice cracking. He almost burned his blankie, Asher. That's his emotional support moss rag. Asher chuckled. Then, like this was normal, he reached behind him and pulled out a large, handmade fan woven from dragon feathers and reed. He started gently fanning the baby every time he coughed or sneezed. I stared. You had a smoke fan ready. Yes. Because you knew this would happen. Yes. And you didn't tell me? I didn't want to worry you. I stared harder. Your genes are ridiculous. He shrugged, entirely unbothered, as the baby burped and exhaled another tiny plume of smoke, this time in my general direction. Great, I muttered, wiping soot off my hoodie. My son is a flamethrower. My husband is a lizard. And I'm pretty sure we're out of burn ointment. Asher leaned over and kissed my forehead, warm and soft. You're doing well, he said. I narrowed my eyes. That's what people say before everything goes to hell. He didn't disagree. Chapter 17, Cultural Exchange. In retaliation, or maybe curiosity, he brought out his idea of a cultural exchange. A tattered leather sack full of what I first thought were rocks. They weren't. This is part of my hoard, he said proudly. Inside were a slightly shiny pine cone, 2 coins fused together with dried blood, an old feather, a cracked gem that looked suspiciously like glass, and what I'm pretty sure was a human molar. I stared. Neat. Are we collecting junk? I said very politely. Treasure hoarding is sacred. It reveals the soul. He corrected. I blinked. Your soul is apparently a murder crow with anxiety. He smiled like that was a compliment. Then he said, your turn, right? Did you forget that I'm from another world? I said, yeah, we'll collect something that you'll like later, he said. We moved on to flying lessons after that. I insisted on just a little hover. He insisted on full vertical lift. 10 seconds in, I was clinging to him like a terrified backpack, screaming nope over the wind. He laughed the entire time. Afterward, breathless and a little windburned, we sat outside the cave watching the baby gnaw on a stick that was probably not poisonous. He leaned against me, wings tucked, tail curled lazily in the dirt. He kissed my temple. Our weird rocks. Our fire baby. Damn right. Chapter 18, A Proposal Without Words. It was just past dusk when he gave it to me. The baby was finally asleep, tail wrapped around his own foot like a little sleeping noodle, and the cave was quiet except for the crackle of the fire. I was scribbling in my notebook, trying to remember how many months old the baby was now, when Asher sat beside me, a strange tension in his shoulders. I looked up. You good? He didn't answer right away, just watched me with that unreadable, storm-slow look he got when his thoughts were 20 feet deep and I was only knee-high in understanding. Then he held out his hand. There, cradled in his palm, was a glowing, pulsing orb the size of a plum. It radiated heat and light, not burning, but steady, like a heartbeat. I blinked. Cool night light. He didn't smile. This is my core, my essence. If you take it, it binds me to you, he said. Voice low, steady, dead serious. I stared at it, then stared at him. Okay, define bind, because that could mean anything from we're dating to I can now summon you with a whistle. It is marriage, he said plainly. My people give their cores to their mate. Cannot be taken back. Cannot be broken. Oh, yeah, oh. I looked down at the thing pulsing in his hand. It glowed in time with his breath, his magic, his life. He was giving me himself. No ring, no kneeling, no speeches, just the core of who he was. My chest went tight. I swallowed hard, brain scrambling, heart not far behind. I took the core from his hand. Warmth flooded my chest like sunlight breaking through water. "Guess we're married now," I said, voice shaky. He smiled. Full smile. Slow and devastating. "Yes, we are," he said. I leaned against him, heart thudding, still glowing a little from the magic, or maybe just from him. "Just wait until I tell the baby, he's gonna freak out," I whispered. The baby farted in his sleep. We both laughed. Chapter 19, Storybook ending. The cave was quiet again. Not just peaceful quiet. That rare, golden kind that settles after a day well spent. Baby snoring. Fire crackling. Wind humming low across the valley like it's tired too. I sat near the entrance. Across from me, Asher was carving. Not for hoard. Not for storage. Just for memory. He'd cleared a whole stretch of cave wall, smoothed it with that talon-sharp precision of his, and started etching. Line by line. Scene by scene. The day I arrived. Me screaming about soup. Him shirtless and unbothered. The baby's first kick. First flame. First nap curled in both our arms. I smiled as I wrote in pages with a feathered ink pen. Once, a man woke up in a body that wasn't his, in a cave that wasn't home, next to a dragon who was quiet. He wanted to leave. He didn't. Instead, he fell in love with the quiet, with the soup, with the impossible warmth of a creature who shouldn't have known how to love, and did anyway. I paused, tapped the pen against the page. Asher turned his head, golden eyes watching me. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. He kept carving. Each image took shape slowly. Me curled up in the nest, the baby wrapped in both our arms. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, voice soft. "So we don't forget," he said. "Do you think we would?" He looked at me. "I would burn the world before I forgot you." I didn't say anything to that. Didn't need to. I turned back to the pages and kept writing, weaving our strange little life into the rhythm of a fairy tale. Not because it was perfect, but because it was ours. Chapter 20, Home. The sunlight slanted in through the mouth of the cave, warm and golden, painting everything it touched in a soft, sleepy glow. The fire had gone out hours ago, but the stone still held its heat. The baby was curled between us like a chubby little salamander. One foot kicked out, thumb halfway to his mouth, tail flicking lazily in a dream. Asher lay on his side, wing half draped over both of us like a blanket. And me? I was still, for once, not thinking about Earth, or escape plans, or how the hell I'd gotten here. Just here, present, whole. I traced a finger down the baby's cheek, then reached over and brushed a lock of Asher's hair from his face. He stirred but didn't open his eyes. Just pressed a little closer, like gravity was stronger between the three of us now. Like it didn't matter where I came from anymore. This was where I'd landed. And somehow, against every ounce of logic and every panic thought I'd ever had, it felt right. I rested my head on Asher's shoulder, letting my eyes drift shut. The baby sighed in his sleep. The cave creaked. Outside, the wind carried the scent of something blooming. And I smiled, because it turns out, this strange, fire-breathing, soup-smelling, fairy tale marriage was the only thing that had ever really felt real.